All work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. This famous line was written by James Howell way back in 1659, but it came to fame in the famous Stanley Kubrick horror film, The Shining. In the movie, the character played by Jack Nicholson snaps and does some very violent and horrific things to his family. If you're ready to snap because you are so out of balance between work and play, listen on to find out how to gain more work-play balance in your life and in your work. Do you ever feel stuck? The alarm goes off and you think, is this really my life? Do you wish you could douse your relationships or your career or even your business with rocket fuel and throw a match on it? End the blah once and for all. They either launch or they burn up and you get to start over. I've been there and I see you. I'm Ben Walters, an entrepreneur, pastor, coach, and consultant. If you're ready to get unstuck and ignite your super pumped life or business, I'll give you the rocket fuel and the match. All you have to do is light it. Now, while the movie portrays an extreme outgrowth of an imbalance between this idea of work and play, this imbalance, even when it's slight, even when it's minor, can lead to other negative outcomes. Things like burnout, things like depression, sometimes just feelings of being overwhelmed. Sometimes it's just low productivity. You just don't have a lot of giddy up because you're just so worn down. So my question is, how do we gain more balance if the scale is tilted so heavily toward work over play, business over pleasure? As we wind down the summer, I often think of the Labor Day holiday weekend, which will be coming up here in a couple weeks, as that official start of what I would call an all-out work sprint between Labor Day and Thanksgiving. It's a time where summer's over and this idea of carefree vacation and days at the beach and all that, that's in the past. And really, most companies get down to brass tacks during this Labor Day to Thanksgiving time. It's really a focused grind, I would call it. And so what I want to do is, knowing that we are going into from a season where maybe in the summer we were a little bit more balanced to a season where we are likely to get way out of balance, which is the fall. So let's talk about this. When we start adulting, some of us believe that playtime is over. You're going to not like it in the real world. You're going to have to get a real job. You're going to have to get to work. And we begin to adopt this mindset. It's almost a badge of honor that we work 70 hours, 80 hours, 60 hours, whatever that is. And so this, what I would call grown-up mindset, as flawed as it is, tends to send us down an imbalanced path to misery. So as we approach Labor Day, how do we retain some balance and some fun in our lives, even into the fall? For me, the first thing is to try and inject more fun into your work. And a lot of this comes down to your mindset. And I know some of you may think that's just touchy-feely and hokey, but it really does. Your mind determines where you're headed in your life. And so when I was on vacation in July, I was actually overseas and I was having a great time. But I knew I had to do a certain number of work promo social media clips. That was just part of what I had to do. And initially I was just begrudging this. I was bitter about it. And I was like, this sucks. I have to work when I'm on vacation. This is no good. This is the problem. Even when you think you're off, you're not off. And I know I've heard that from a lot of you too, and as well as some of my clients. And that was what I had to do. And it felt like that work was encroaching on my time and all I wanted to do was play. But then I began to think about, how can I make this a little bit more fun? And so what I did was I enlisted my adult children. And so my daughter and I were flying together overseas. We had a connection in Detroit. And I said, hey, let's make a funny video clip in the Detroit airport about all the things you could do with kids in the airport to try and make flying with kids more manageable. And so I ended up getting soaking wet in the fountain, and I was running up and down the escalator the wrong way and just really having a good time. And so even though it was work, it was actually fun. And then when I was in Croatia and in Prague, my son and I got into doing all these funny videos. And so one of them, I climbed a ladder. It was climbing the corporate ladder. I ended up putting my head into the back of an art piece. And so the idea in that podcast, and check it out in an earlier podcast episode, was the fact that you're not going to move up the corporate ladder by putting your head up your boss's backside. And so we did a really funny clip there, and we actually had to do a little bit of trespassing and jump some fences, and it was dumping down rain. And looking back, it was actually really funny. And so as this piece of work began to evolve into fun, it became less like work and it became less draining. And I actually, by the end of the trip, I started getting up excited about what kind of photo shoots we could do that day and what kind of things we could do. And we ended up in Cape Cod on our kind of July vacation, visiting family. And we were walking and the tide had gone out and we were just walking in the mud. And I thought, oh, this would be funny to be in the mud. And so we started making clips in the mud, and then we went to Goodwill and we got a suit. And then we were doing clips in the mud in a suit. And then all of a sudden people are gathering on the shore, and it became actually really funny and really fun. But I got the work done. So the first thing I want you to think about as you go into this time of heavy work is, how do you make your work more fun? How do you just find more joy in that? And one of the things I find that's very helpful is to bring others along in it. We are social beings by nature, right, as humans. And so anytime you can bring others in to help you and collaborate with you and bounce ideas off of, or even laugh about things. Some of our most fun moments when we were doing video clips was the bloopers, I guess you'd call them, where I got tongue-tied or I said the wrong word or the funny word or those kinds of things. And so just having those other people there versus smacking up a phone on a tripod or smacking up a camera on a tripod, not that fun. So think about people that you can bring along in your work and inject fun into things. Now, here's another example of fun and play being a choice, even within our work context. So I have been to hundreds of conferences and events, and I've worked in a hotel as part of my undercover boss type work. And I've seen thousands of people who are mandated by their company to be at certain conferences. And what I would say is the conference goers fall into two buckets. Now, remember, everybody is required to be there, so that doesn't change. But there are those who are very bitter about being there. When you talk to them there or others talk to them, they say, oh, this stinks. We had to come here. I got a million things to do back in the office, and I'm missing my kids' game, and whatever the litany is. And so as soon as that conference ends, whether it's 5 o'clock or whether it's dinner at 7 o'clock, whatever the schedule is, those people bolt to their room and they lock the door, and I don't know what they do, but whatever they do behind closed doors, they're very miserable. Then there's a second type of conference goer. I would call these the people that are there on work, but they're going to have some fun. And so these are the people that are inviting others to grab a bite to eat in the restaurant or check out some other restaurant outside of the hotel that they're staying in, or maybe catch a Reds game or a Bengals game or an FC Cincinnati game, or go to a concert. Or at the hotel I was at, we have bikes. Some of them say, let's grab a couple of bikes and just explore. You can cover a lot more ground. What I find is that those are the folks, this second bucket of people, where they're intent on playing within the work context. They get the most out of that conference. They are the people that do the most networking, that get the most information. They are excited. They are energized. They are super pumped, right? And then there's the other bucket of people who slodge down the aisle and they're like, yeah, it stinks. I had to be at this conference for the last 3 days. Now I've got to fly back to Philly or wherever they came from. You can decide within your mind and within your mindset, am I going to have fun at something, or is it going to be misery? And basically what your mind decides is what you're going to have. Mike Rogers, in the interview I do with him, he talks about there are thinkers and provers, and we have both. And so if we think it, then we will try to prove it. And so that's how that works. Decide how you want to do that, and then make it happen for yourself, okay? Because I guarantee you're going to have a lot more fun if you really pour yourself into playing at the conference rather than just doing whatever it's supposed to be. So that's a second learning. And then I want to talk about something else. I want to talk about this idea of play versus work. Now, when I was a kid, think about back when you were a kid too, because I assume you're probably a little bit like me. In the summer, I played outside all day, every day. I climbed trees. I built these crazy ramps and tried to jump my bike, and I would get all jacked up. And then we'd go to one of our favorite activities. We would go to the school once a month when they irrigated it and they flooded it with 6 to 8 inches of water. And this is in Phoenix in the summer, so it's hotter than blazes. Back then, we had these things called swamp coolers. We didn't have air conditioning, so it was hot. And we would basically play tackle football and just get crushed into the water. But we were just a dripping mess. It was fun. It was cool. Just had a great time. I can tell you that just through the act of play, I was a fit little fiddle. Probably the best shape of my life growing up as a kid in Phoenix. Not one time during that childhood, though, did I say, "Hey, Mom, I need to go work out." I don't think that ever crossed my lips that I needed to go work out, right? So here I am, I'm just playing, right? And that's all I'm doing. And a lot of you may say, of course, that's a child's life. Because on the surface, it seems like it's 100% just play, zero work, right? And it was to some degree because I didn't have a job and I didn't have work. But when you look deeper at the act of play, right? It was actually a great time of personal growth. If you've ever played sports with kids in your neighborhood in the summer, there's all kinds of arguments and negotiations that go on. First off is, what are we going to do this afternoon? And one kid has this idea, and another kid has this idea, and then you come together and try to sort through all that. You know what you do in your business? It's the same thing. You may have 5 ideas that are on this vision board in your company, but you've got to sort out which one you're going to do. And then, okay, if we're going to do this one first, are we going to do this one next? It's the same thing you did as kids, just I guess on a higher, more grown up, buttoned up level, right? You had to negotiate with your moms about what was okay. How far could you go within the neighborhood? Same thing if you're in a company, you may pick a project, but you're like, how far will the leadership let you push this? You did that as a kid also. There were also a lot of conflicts as kids. You know, you're playing basketball and somebody drives baseline and one guy says, "No, you stepped out before you did the reverse layup." And another kid says, "No, I didn't." And then there's some arguing. And so there weren't mediators. You had to sort that out. You had to come to terms with it because you were working with those people. Think about that. It's the same thing in business. Sometimes we start to have conflict and we've got to work with these people. We've got to play with these people. And so how do you sort that out? So those are skills you learned through the act of play. The other piece of it is with play, you get stronger and more skillful. And so we were in the best shape of our lives, yet we didn't have fitness trackers. We didn't go to the gym. We didn't work out. We certainly didn't count calories. We ate whatever the heck we wanted. And in the process of all this play, most of us developed enough skill in different sports, sometimes multiple sports, to actually make the cut on high school teams and go on to play varsity, whatever, and get our Letterman's jacket. So there was real skill development within that concept of play. That same possibility is there in your business. Some people think if my business has too much fun, we're not getting anything done. That is not the case. Have some fun and you might actually get way more done. Now, fast forward to adulthood, thinking about this concept of play. I hear over and over again, I need to work out. I need to work out. Think about the verbiage there. I need. So it's not I want. It's I need, like it's some requirement. And then work out. Again, very negative connotation. It's work to push those weights up. It's a chore. It's a duty. It's dreadful. It's an obligation because you must work out. Think about it. Now, as an adult, I'm a little soft around the middle because I have to work out, if you will. So is your mindset you have to work out, or is it I want to play? Because when I was a kid and I wanted to play all the time, I was in the best shape of my life. Now as an adult, when I have to work out, I'm not in nearly the great shape I am. Now I want to give you a full confession. I love cardio, running, basketball, walking, hiking, racquetball. But these to me are all games and fun and almost like being a kid. But I've never loved lifting and strength training and kind of that side of things, weights. That's always felt like work and working out rather than playing games. That is until recently. Recently, I came across a brand new playground at a park near my house. And this playground equipment is different than anything you've ever seen. It's playground equipment from a company called Game Time, and they are a Playcore company. They have been around, this is crazy, they've been around since 1929, and they are passionate about play with fun and innovative products that bring people together around recreation. That's interesting. So, fun and play, people coming together, and recreation. Those sound like pretty desirable things, right? They sound very different than, I have to work out, I need to work out. Total mind shift, right? While I have always hated getting up and going to the gym to work out with the weights, I now love going to my Playcore playground and jumping into the challenges, going through these spider webs and going over ladders and back down the other side and swinging on little ropes and climbing things and trying to navigate a climbing wall to the other side and all these fun mental and physical challenges. So working out is a mental block, and I've been hit or miss on it. But so far, when I think about going to a playground to have fun, I'm going dutifully every other day like clockwork. Simple shift in the mind, and yet I'm committed now in a way I haven't been before. As a pastor, I often hear couples talk about how they, and this is a phrase, need to work on their marriage. They'll come to me and say, we need some help. That's good recognition and so forth. But the verbiage, need to work on their marriage. Meanwhile, I've had buddies that will tell me they're cheating on their spouse. And what do? They say, yeah, dude, I'm playing around. So on the one hand, I have married couples saying we got to work on our marriage, work things out. And the cheaters are saying, I'm going to go play around. So is the mindset that the marriage is work and the affair is play? I guess so. But think about this. Think about skipping the affair and injecting the same fun and playfulness into your marriage that you would inject into having that affair. Think about that for a minute, okay? And I know we're probably going down a rabbit hole, but hang with me here, okay? So when you think about working on your marriage, you're equating your marriage with something dreadful, and your betrayal of the marriage is something fun, right? Now, here's the thing. I suspect if you were as charming and as fun with your spouse, and if you plan these awesome kind of cool dates that you've planned for that person you're trying to woo to have the affair with, I suspect, and I'm pretty sure of it, it would ignite the same kind of sparks with your partner that it's igniting with that potential cheating mate, right? If you planned that amount of fun and brought your best foot forward and were playful and charming, I guarantee your marriage satisfaction would go up. Simple mind shift. Now, I'm, again, not sure how we went down that rabbit hole, but let's come up for air. The takeaway is, if your life is imbalanced between work and play, and maybe you're ready to snap like Jack in the movie The Shining, you need to shift your mindset. Decide to have fun in your work. Be the person who goes to the conference and the mandatory events and says, you know what, even though I might want to be somewhere else, I am going to have the most fun I can on this. And when you have work that maybe is solitary work and you're dreading, get other people to come along. Invite them to collaborate with you. All of a sudden, you'll be having a laugh or a coffee or maybe a drink after work and discussing it. And it will all of a sudden not feel as much like work. It will feel more like play, more like fun. And you know what that balance is going to start doing? It's going to start tipping to a more even level. If you have to work during family time, maybe start trying to include your partner or your kids or even your grandkids and try to make it fun. And if you want to get in better mental or physical shape, I'm in the final stage. This is really cool. I'm so excited about it. Of developing an incredible body and brain play experience where through playfulness, we really start to get those muscles, both physical and mental, back into the shape we want them to be in a fun and engaging way. And if you want to join me on that, reach out because I'm having so much fun with this. It is awesome. And I would love for you to be part of this process and just give me feedback on what works, what doesn't, and we will go from there. So again, I'm modeling what I'm talking about. Let's have fun out there in our work. And as we approach that Labor Day and we head into this kind of head down season, go out there and have some fun. Thanks for joining me today on the Super Pumped podcast. If you enjoyed today's show as much as I did, I have 3 quick next steps for you. First, subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or YouTube to make sure you don't miss future episodes. Next, leave me a review in your podcast app and tell your friends about the show so others can find and benefit from the Super Pumped community. And finally, to put the ideas from today's show into action, visit us at superpumped.com to view the show notes, book a complimentary consultation, or take our free business launch readiness assessment. Keep well, and I'll see you next time.